Tian Tian is an illustrator artist, and today she was going for a job interview at a big company. The security guard looked at all the candidates and then told them to remove any red items from their bodies. They weren't even allowed to wear red lipstick. This was a big problem because Tian Tian's submission for the interview was a red doll. She quickly put it in her bag and then buttoned up her shirt so she could pass the first hurdle. As soon as she entered the main lobby, Tian Tian saw her artwork on display on the wall. But the designer's name was different. She took out her phone to confirm that it was definitely her work. Then she quickly stopped an employee and asked about the designer. The employee said it was designed by Kevin, who is also the person interviewing candidates today. When she went into the interview, she mentioned this immediately. Tian Tian pulled out her phone and confronted Kevin, asking why his design was exactly like the painting she had created 3 years ago. Kevin looked very panicked. He tried to accuse Tian Tian of trying to blackmail him, but she wasn't afraid at all because she always hides a Tian logo in each of her paintings. Kevin zoomed in on the painting and started to get nervous. He was scared of getting caught, so he called the security guard and had Tian Tian escorted out. Before she left, Tian Tian warned him loudly that she wouldn't tolerate this kind of plagiarism. After being kicked out, Tian Tian wanted to find the company's CEO to get justice, but the security guard stopped her at the door. Tian Tian was trying to figure out when the CEO would be leaving when she heard someone say the CEO was here. A man with glasses stepped out of a fancy car. It was Lou Celi, the company's CEO. This was a great opportunity that Tian Tian couldn't miss. She ran up to him and told him how her artwork had been copied by the company. She then took out her artwork, but Lou Celi wasn't interested at all. His time is precious, and if he had to handle this little thing himself, then what was the point of having employees? But this was a big deal in Tian Tian's life. Seeing the CEO about to leave, she quickly threw her toy artwork at him. Lou Celi instinctively dodged, causing his sunglasses to fall to the ground. When he saw the red toy on the floor, the world seemed to spin around him. He thought about the accident he had as a child. Lou Celi lost all his strength and fainted right there. He was gone just like that. It turned out that Lou Celi had a phobia of blood. He would faint just by seeing the color red. He had been trying to treat it for years, but nothing had worked. When he woke up, he called Kevin over and asked him to hand over all the documents regarding the art toy design. The company would handle it. Meanwhile, Tian Tian got a call from Kevin as soon as she got home. He wanted to bribe her into dropping her investigation about the copying of her work. Tian Tian was a person of integrity, so she refused. She vowed to investigate this matter thoroughly. Her best friend said she would help her get the CEO's schedule. Lou Celi was being forced by his father to go on a blind date. Tian Tian learned this from her friend, so she hurried to the hotel. But the hotel only allowed members, and Tian Tian couldn't get in. So she lied and said she was there for a job interview, which allowed her to enter. It was hard, but Tian Tian finally found Lou Celi's room. She angrily burst in. Tian Tian demanded the CEO severely punish the plagiarism in order to get justice. Lou Celi saw the red drawing on her shirt and was about to faint. This time, he fell onto Tian Tian. He should have fainted immediately, but unexpectedly, as soon as he touched her, he suddenly woke up. Before he could react to what was happening, Tian Tian pushed him down. Lou Celi wasn't doing well. Seeing the CEO slowly fall backwards, Tian Tian rushed to pull him back. But after all, she was a weak woman. As a result, they both fell onto the sofa. Time seemed to stop. Why didn't he faint when he touched her, even though he hated red? Lou Celi hadn't even processed what was happening when his assistant suddenly walked in. He rushed to pull Tian Tian up, thinking she was harassing the CEO. But Lou Celi pulled her hand back. He wouldn't let Tian Tian go, no matter what. Then Lou Celi put his sunglasses back on, the only one there wearing them. Tian Tian started telling Lou Celi about her plagiarized artwork. She demanded that the CEO give her justice. Lou Celi took off his sunglasses and saw a red flower on the artwork. He fainted again, but when he touched Tian Tian's hand, he was normal again. To make sure he wasn't dreaming, Lou Celi went behind her and put his hand on her shoulder. Then he lowered his sunglasses, looked at the red flower, and exclaimed, "This is unbelievable." Tian Tian thought it was strange, but she continued talking about her artwork. Lou Celi went and poured her a glass of water. When Tian Tian reached for the glass, Lou Celi started taking off his sunglasses again and looked at the flower on the artwork. Unbelievably, he wasn't fainting anymore. He tried it again and again, making Tian Tian suspicious that he might be sick. Then Tian Tian picked up her artwork and left. Lou Celi happily went to see Dr. Lee to tell his personal doctor about it. Dr. Lee said that this girl might be the key to solving his illness, so he should spend more time with her. After returning to the company, his assistant reported that Kevin had confirmed the plagiarism of Tiantian's artwork. Lou Celi decided to fire him and told his assistant to investigate Tiantian's background. Since they were just entering the art toy industry, the company wanted him to meet a toy expert, Lou Celi. However, Lou Celi was quite eccentric and difficult to talk to. He was always unpredictable. This time he was hosting a party inviting everyone, but the theme of the party was Red China. Lou Celi couldn't wear sunglasses at the party, so it would be hard to approach Lou Celi. He remembered Tian. So, Lou Celi decided to test it again. He prepared a can of Coke and placed it in front of him. After seeing Tian, he didn't understand why this seemingly ordinary girl was the key to his cure. When he saw Tian sit down, he quickly handed her the Coke. Then he grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go. He took advantage of the opportunity to take off his sunglasses. Indeed, this girl was his cure. Lou Celi told Tian that he had fired Kevin and that the company would pay her royalties. Seeing that she wasn't hating him anymore, Lou Celi quickly invited her to join him at the art toy industry networking party. Tian was very excited to hear this, but when she heard Lou Celi asking her to hold his hand throughout the entire party, she immediately refused. What kind of guy is this? What a creep, she thought. Then she got up and left. Tian went home and told her best friend about it. But when it got to her friend's ears, it became a sensational plot for a 200,000-word novel. Then her friend returned to reality and encouraged Tian, saying that it might not be as bad as she thought. She also reminded Tian to be careful of Kevin's revenge. Sure enough, the next morning, on her way home, Tian was attacked by a man in black. Lou Celi and his assistant happened to be nearby. He immediately ran to fight the man in black. Unexpectedly, Lou Celi was hit by the man in black, causing his glasses to fall off. When he was about to fight back, he accidentally saw the red shirt underneath the man's clothes and was about to faint. The man in black, seeing this, quickly broke free and ran away. Tian thanked him for helping her. Lou Celi took the opportunity to invite her to the party again, not forgetting to give Tian a card to show his sincerity. Feeling insulted, Tian immediately got up to see him off. However, when Lou Celi pulled out the invitation card, Tian saw that it was organized by her idol and immediately agreed to go. When they were both dressed up for the party, Lou Celi asked Tian to help him tie his red bow tie, as it was required by the party. He was too tall, so Tian couldn't reach. She suggested he bend down, but Lou Celi said she could stand on her tiptoes. With no choice, Tian pulled him down close to her and quickly tied the bow tie around his neck. Lou Celi also seized the opportunity to take her hand and quickly tied the other bow tie onto Tian's hair. Then they walked hand in hand into the party. Seeing so much red for the first time, Lou Celi was very nervous. He turned to Tian and instructed her that she had to hold his hand tonight and couldn't leave his side at any time. While they were touring the party, they ran into painter Wen Xian, who was Lou Celi's childhood friend. He quickly introduced Tian to Wen Xian. After saying hello, Wen Xian whispered to Lou Celi, asking why he brought such a random person along. Tian heard this and immediately took her hand away from Lou Celi's, but he quickly grabbed her hand tightly and wouldn't let go. Wen Xian didn't hold back and said to Tian, "Let go of Lou Celi's hand." Lou Celi quickly told Wen Xian that Tian was his guest and that she was unique to him. Then he said goodbye to Wen Xian and took Tian away. They quickly found Lou Celi playing archery. But when Lou Celi mentioned a partnership, Lou Celi immediately refused, saying he was here to play, not to discuss business. Seeing that there was no red around, Lou Celi immediately wanted to play with Lou Celi. Lou Celi finished his round with all 10, which made Tian puzzled. Why didn't he let Lou Celi win if he wanted to partner with him? But Lou Celi said that he only used half his strength and was being very considerate of him. When he received a secret box, Lou Celi gave it to Lou Celi. But everyone who saw it commented that Lou Celi had signed his name on the board and drew a heart around Lou Celi's signature, implying that he had planned this beforehand. Seeing this, Lou Celi rejected the gift and quickly left. At the ceremony, Lou Celi saw that Lou Celi wanted to approach him, so he whispered something to his secretary and left. When Lou Celi went over, he was immediately surrounded by young ladies. They separated the two and pushed Tian outside. As soon as she left, Lou Celi couldn't stand it anymore. Suddenly, a lot of red balloons fell down. Seeing the red, Lou Celi's blood phobia flared up again. Tian timely squeezed in and caught Lou Celi. Luckily, nothing serious happened. After seeing Lou Celi faint multiple times, Tian guessed he was sick, so she advised him to see a doctor. But Lou Celi insisted that he just had low blood sugar. Who would believe him? She thought. Then Lou Celi brought up the topic of wanting to work with her again. He wanted to hire her for a senior position in Tian Sheng Group. Coincidentally, Tian also wanted to work at Tian Sheng Group. When she was about to open the contract to look at it, he stopped her, telling her to wait until they got home to open it. Assistant for Personal Affairs? Tian felt like she was being tricked by the CEO. The next day, she stormed into his office and argued with him. What do you mean, Assistant for Personal Affairs? Didn't you say you were hiring me as a senior employee of the company? There's no misunderstanding here, right? Lou Celi explained that the CEO's Assistant for Personal Affairs was a senior position in Tian Sheng Group. Tian thought she had been tricked, so she could only say that she couldn't handle such a demanding job. Lou Celi had no choice but to use money to talk. He told Tian to look at the last clause in the contract. Lou Celi thought Tian would agree to work for him when she saw the salary of 20,000 yuan. But unexpectedly, she was someone who didn't care about money. You're a sick man, and you want to buy me with money? You're dreaming. I'll be your assistant for personal affairs, all right. Seeing that Tian was determined not to take the job, Lou Celi couldn't easily let her go. He had worked so hard to find someone to treat his red phobia. He believed that money could solve everything. So Lou Celi bought a bouquet of flowers to visit Tian. Seeing her open the door, Lou Celi didn't waste any words. As long as you agree to be my assistant for personal affairs, you can fill in whatever number you want on this check. Tian had never seen a guy like this before, so she picked up a pen and signed her name. Seeing Tian sign the contract, Lou Celi felt that he was indeed a charming guy. But when he opened the contract to take a look, he saw that Tian had drawn a turtle on it. She once again refused his offer. For the second time, Lou Celi brought up the matter of her being stalked before. He said that if she agreed to be his assistant for personal affairs, he would assign people to protect her safety. He also used the salary of a special assistant to recruit her, but Tian still left without accepting. Lou Celi thought he hadn't shown enough sincerity. His assistant thought that Tian didn't like to show off, while the boss was a bit over the top, so she didn't agree. So for the third time, Lou Celi invited Tian to eat Western food, but instead of using knives and forks, he used chopsticks. He also drank champagne from a plastic cup. Tian was confused as to whether her boss had gone crazy or not. Then he brought up the matter of her becoming his assistant for personal affairs. Tian didn't understand why he was so stubborn. He could find someone else to replace her, but Lou Celi said that she was irreplaceable to him. But Tian still got up and left. The next day, Lou Celi went to work, and Wen Xian brought him lunch. She planned to go back to her country to develop her career, so she came to ask for his help. Lou Celi accepted her sincerity, but then said he was very busy and sent her away. Tian's friend wanted to investigate for her, so she followed Lou Celi and secretly took pictures of him. Unfortunately, the assistant saw her and followed her. However, she was quick-witted and escaped. She went home and told Tian what she had found out. Lou Celi had studied abroad since he was 10 years old. He returned to China a few years ago and joined the Liu family. In 2 years, he had led the Tian Sheng Group to become the leader in the toy industry. He was worth hundreds of millions of yuan, had extraordinary looks, and was shockingly blunt, just like a domineering CEO. Her friend also captured a scene of Lou Celi attending a wedding, but he used a poster to cover the word happiness, making Tian think he was using the wedding as a platform to showcase his company's products. Therefore, she felt that Lou Celi was very strange and avoided him as much as possible. Her friend was also worried about Tian, so she gave her self-defense spray. Tian continued to look for jobs to sustain herself, but she failed all the interviews, which made her very disappointed. Lou Celi quickly learned about this and was very happy. Today, he had a dinner date with Wen Xian, but when he got out of the car, he accidentally bumped into Tian, who had just come back from a job interview. Seeing her dejected figure walking in the rain, Lou Celi ignored Wen Xian and quickly brought an umbrella to shelter her. Tian turned her head and found it was the perverted CEO again. "Are you following me?" she asked. "This is just a coincidence." he explained. Tian was sad and didn't want to argue with him. Lou Celi said, "If you keep failing your interviews, why don't you consider becoming my assistant for personal affairs?" These words made Tian misunderstand that all the companies that rejected her were because of him. She thought Lou Celi was a villain who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. She angrily turned and left. Lou Celi quickly grabbed her hand. Tian felt that this guy was very strange. It was raining heavily, and he was still wearing sunglasses. She just hated the look of him. When Tian pulled her hand away, she accidentally dropped Lou Celi's sunglasses. She warned him never to appear in front of her again and immediately left. Surprisingly, a red car drove past at that moment, triggering Lou Celi's fear of red again. Hearing the noise, Tian turned her head and saw Lou Celi lying motionless on the ground. She quickly ran over and took him to the hospital. The assistant said that Lou Celi just had a common low blood sugar condition and that she failed her interviews because of Kevin, not Lou Celi. After realizing that she had blamed Lou Celi wrongly, Tian apologized to him. She shouldn't have been so hasty without knowing the truth. Unexpectedly, as soon as she went out, she heard the assistant instructing the nurse in ward 301 not to show any red and to temporarily suspend any blood tests. Is the patient suffering from hematopia? Tian thought. Then she remembered that every time he fainted, it was related to the color red. But in order to figure out the whole thing, she deliberately put red lipstick on her lips, gave a wicked smile, and walked into the ward. Lou Celi saw her red lipstick and was stunned. He was about to faint. He quickly reached for his glasses on the table, but Tian quickly grabbed them. "Sure enough, you have hematophobia, and I am the cure for you." Lou Celi angrily pulled Tian towards him. They were in contact, and an indescribable feeling arose in their hearts. The assistant suddenly walked into the room and saw the scene. He quickly left. Tian hurriedly put Lou Celi's sunglasses on him and moved away from him. Now, she knew about his condition, but she didn't understand why he didn't experience dizziness or fainting when he touched her. Lou Celi didn't know either, but his doctor was helping him understand that. So he wanted to hire her as his life assistant during this time. Tian could be his life assistant, but on the condition that Lou Celi let her work in the design department, and he couldn't let his colleagues know she was his life assistant. Lou Celi happily agreed. After all, she was his savior. On her first day at work, Lou Celi reminded her, "When you're a designer, you don't have to be meticulous. But when you're my assistant, you have to be meticulous about every detail." Then he reached out and clipped her hair for her. Then the assistant took her to the design department and introduced her to everyone. When the assistant left, the design director coldly told her to quickly learn about the product ideas and styles so she could work. Then he told everyone to dismiss. However, Tian couldn't control her own life. She wanted to be a designer, but while working, she was often pulled away for no reason, causing everyone in the room to gossip, thinking that she was the CEO's domineering mistress. They thought it was a love letter from Tian to Lou Celi and started gossiping about it. The assistant heard about it and told Lou Celi. Lou Celi thought Tian was attracted to him, so he wanted to keep his distance from her. When Tian wanted to meet him to give him the invitation, he avoided her, making it hard for her to find him. When Tian found out that Lou Celi thought she liked him, she told him they were different types of people and he wasn't her type. Lou Celi was embarrassed and angry, and he decided not to accept the interview. Tian realized her words had caused trouble, so she went back and apologized to her friend. The next day, she was talking to her coworkers and started praising her idol, Lou Celi. Lou Celi overheard her and decided to accept the exclusive interview with her friend, just to prove to her that he would look better on the cover than Lou Celi. Lou Celi's cousin came back from studying abroad, and Lou Celi gave him a picture of them together with a red background. This reminded Jian of how his dad told him that Lou Celi didn't like the color red, so there couldn't be anything red in their house. Even the Spider-Man toy Jian liked was thrown away by his dad, which made him angry, and he smashed the picture of him and his cousin. Now the special gift his cousin gave him was a Superman bed set, but Jian still hated Lou Celi's self-righteous personality. At the welcome dinner, Lou Celi wanted his younger brother to work at the company, but Jian didn't like the idea. Lou Celi then offered to open a company for him, but Jian asked if there were any jobs that didn't require effort but paid a lot. Lou Celi thought for a moment and said being a turtle in a wishing pond. Just then, Wen Xian arrived to congratulate Jian on his return. She was upset to see Tian there and quickly clarified that she was just his assistant. Lou Celi further explained that, yes, they were together in the morning, but their roles changed at night, as they were guarding each other. His words left the four of them staring at him in disbelief. The design department had a new project, but Tian wasn't assigned to it. She asked her department head if she could help, and he told her to research competing products in the industry. She drew some ideas and brought them to the head of the department and asked if she could submit an idea for the new project. The department head saw her drawings and agreed, asking her to submit her design by the weekend. However, Lou Celi kept calling her out. Even during his online meetings, he made her sit next to him. If she turned off her phone, his assistant would immediately appear behind her. Because of this, Tian couldn't finish her designs and was criticized by the head of the department. She couldn't take it anymore and went to find Lou Celi. She told him she wanted to focus on her designs during the day and be his personal assistant at night, but Lou Celi refused. Back home, she was fuming and trying to figure out how to deal with her crazy boss. Unexpectedly, Lou Celi called her and demanded her immediate presence for a task, but she refused, saying it was already after work. She had agreed to be his personal assistant after work, but only on the condition that she was a designer during work hours. Turns out, Wenxian, Lou Celi's childhood sweetheart, was visiting. When Tian arrived, she was afraid that Lou Celi would not keep his word, so she secretly recorded their conversation as evidence. After achieving her goal, she started hanging the painting Wenxian brought. As she walked down the stairs, she slipped and fell, but Lou Celi caught her in time. Tian accidentally kissed his forehead, and both of them felt awkward, especially Tian. She was so flustered that she forgot which way the door was and rushed home, forgetting her bag. Lou Celi quickly chased after her and returned her bag. After he gave her the bag, a miracle happened. A guy with a bouquet of roses passed by. Even though Lou Celi saw the red color, he didn't faint. Lou Celi immediately bought a bouquet of roses, put on red bedding, drank red wine, and after celebrating alone, went to see his personal doctor. Under hypnosis, he remembered the accident when he was a child. A little girl appeared and kissed Lou Celi on the forehead to encourage him not to be afraid anymore. He couldn't see her face clearly. Could the fact that he no longer feared red be related to that forehead kiss, since Tian kissed him on the forehead yesterday? He didn't know how long this state of not fearing red would last. But for now, he wanted to enjoy it, so he invited Dr. Li to go racing. However, he lost to 2 kids and was not satisfied. He wanted to challenge them again. This time, whoever lost had to draw a turtle on their face. Dr. Li didn't want to participate anymore, but Lou Celi didn't give him a chance to back out. Finally, they both had a turtle drawn on their faces. The assistant couldn't find Lou Celi at work and asked Tian for information, but he hadn't contacted her either. This was the first time Lou Celi hadn't gone to work because he wanted to rest, but it made Tian happy because she wasn't bothered. Meanwhile, Lou Celi was eating spicy hot pot with his doctor. Despite the heat, when the doctor wanted to switch to bone broth, he refused. It was hard for him to see red, and he couldn't go back to the bone broth, which was the last ranked broth in the hot pot chain for so many years. So, although they were eating and drinking, they were both enthusiastic and excited. Afterwards, they went to the cinema. Dr. Li wondered why he chose this superhero movie when there were so many good ones. Lou Celi said it was because Xiao liked it. He was truly a brother-obsessed person, doing everything today just because Xiao liked it. He posted a picture online, leading Wenxian to think he had a girlfriend, causing her to cry to Jian and ask him to take her to Lou Celi's place. When they arrived, they found out that the one who had been hanging out with Lou Celi all day was Dr. Li, and they were happy. Lou Celi asked why they came to find him. Wenxian lied and said Jian wanted to learn from him, so Lou Celi decided to take Jian to work at the company the next day. Hearing that Tian wanted to see the exhibition but couldn't get tickets, Lou Celi told his assistant to arrange it and remember to get an extra ticket for Jian so he could show off. He also wanted to tell her he had recovered. But when he saw Jian with a can of Coke, Tian immediately grabbed his hand. Seeing Tian proactively protect him, he decided to tell her about his recovery later. So, Lou Celi didn't tell Tian that he had recovered. She wanted to go to the bathroom and asked him to put on his sunglasses and wait for her there. When she came back, she saw Lou Celi surrounded by people, and fearing something had happened, she ran to pull him away. Just then, 2 girls said he was being pretentious, wearing sunglasses to an art exhibition. Tian immediately defended him and argued with the 2 girls. Lou Celi stopped her and said, "Geniuses are often misunderstood. Tian said, "I used to think the same way about you, but not anymore. From now on, I'll be your sunglasses. No one will point fingers at you anymore." This touched him deeply, and he was about to tell her about his recovery. But Tian was attracted to a painting. It resembled the pet Kevin was in charge of. Lou Celi confirmed that he had not signed any copyright with any artist, so he called his assistant to investigate. Tian discovered that Lou Celi was looking at the flowers in the painting and didn't faint. She also didn't hold his hand. So she pointed at the painting on the wall and asked, "You're not fainting anymore, are you?" Lou Celi quickly explained, "I brought you here today to tell you this." Upon learning that Lou Celi had recovered, Tian was overjoyed. Finally, she didn't have to be his personal assistant anymore and could focus on designing her new work. She was so happy, but Lou Celi wasn't going to let her off so easily. To obtain the copyright of the painter of that painting, he specifically assigned her to accompany him to Shanshui village to find him. This was her first time visiting such a rural area, so she got off the bus at the wrong stop, and Lou Celi made Tian carry his luggage for him. "I have to carry both of these." Seeing Tian struggling to carry both suitcases alone, Lou Celi couldn't bear to see it. He went back to pick up his luggage himself. After much difficulty, they finally reached the inn, but there was only one room left, and there was only one motel around. They had no choice but to share a room, but there was no sofa in the room. For Tian, this was not a problem. They just had to split the bed in half and each sleep on one side. Although it sounded simple, after Lou Celi finished showering, he found Tian asleep on the bed with one leg on the other side of the bed. Lou Celi slowly climbed onto the bed, pulled the curtain, and lifted Tian's leg to the other side. Before he could lie down, Tian turned over and rested her head on him, and the curtain fell. They were now extremely close. Before Lou Celi could react to what was happening, Tian turned to the other side and continued sleeping soundly. So Lou Celi had to get up and hang the curtain. The next morning, while the two of them were drinking coffee, they discovered that the painting they were looking for was hanging there. From the waiter's words, they quickly arrived at the artist's studio. Unexpectedly, they saw Lou Celi there, but he said he was only taking pictures and hadn't seen any artist. Seeing that the painting was newly completed, they assumed the artist hadn't gone far, so they quickly greeted Lou Celi and went to look for him. When they arrived at the artist's house, they knocked on the door, but no one opened it. Only a piece of paper was slipped out. It said, "If you have anything to say, just write it down." When Lou Celi mentioned buying the copyright to his cat painting, he was refused. Lou Celi, out of habit, took out money to discuss it, but a water pipe in the house suddenly sprayed water at them. Back at the hotel, Tian thought the artist was a sentimental person with childish hobbies, so their approach might be wrong and suggested he go again. But when they arrived, a sign was hung outside the gate saying, "Dogs in Tian Sheng group are not allowed." They were about to leave when they met Lou Celi again. He said he was just passing by, but also advised them that the artist was difficult to persuade, not to give up easily. So Tian decided to set up camp in front of the artist's house and wait for him. This made Lou Celi feel she was stubborn, but in a cute way. For the first time eating instant noodles, Lou Celi found it extremely delicious and decided to tell his assistant to buy him a whole box to keep in the office. Just then, a firefly landed on his shoulder, scaring him, and he quickly called for her to catch it. Tian happily caught the firefly and told him the legend about these fireflies. Then, she gently took his hand and placed the firefly on it. She asked him if he had never caught bugs or played in the mud in the fields when he was a child. He told her about his childhood, how he had been afraid of blood since he was 10 years old, so he had mostly seen the world through his sunglasses. Tian encouraged him, saying that now that he was cured, he could see all the good things in the world. Lou Celi thought silently. Even if he wasn't completely cured, having her by his side made him feel safe. The next morning, in the small space of the tent, Lou Celi secretly watched Tian sleep and recalled their conversation the previous night. He unconsciously reached out to stroke her hair. At that moment, he heard the door open and called for her to get up. They went out and found that the artist they were looking for was Lou Celi. However, Lou Celi still refused to sign the contract. Seeing this, Tian suggested they work with Lou Celi. Eventually, they won over Lou Celi, and he told them about his childhood. Seeing Lou Celi's sincerity, Lou Celi agreed to transfer the copyright of the cat to his company. Meanwhile, Wenxian's father was meeting with Kevin. He wanted Kevin to admit to plagiarizing Lou Celi's cat work, and in return, he would give him a job with a high salary. While Lou Celi and Tian were leaving the countryside on a motor-powered cart, they received news from Jian that the lack of copyright for the cat had been leaked, and the company was being criticized by the public. At that moment, the cart broke down, and they had to carry their luggage and walk to find a ride. But when they reached the bus stop, they were informed that the buses only ran on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And it started raining. They had to find an abandoned house to take shelter. Suddenly, a terrifying howl came from inside the room, making Lou Celi panic and hug Tian tightly. They walked one after the other towards the source of the noise. It turned out to be the wind blowing into a pile of boxes, making a sound like a howl. Afterwards, Lou Celi started searching for a signal on his phone to send a message for help to the doctor. When the signal went through, he was overjoyed and slipped and fell from the height. Fortunately, Tian managed to catch him before he fell, but she kissed him on the forehead. Was this payback? In the end, Lou Celi and Tian managed to return in time for the press conference and announce the copyright agreement they had signed with Liu Celi, putting an end to all the rumors about the company. After the press conference, Jian's father met him privately and brought up the topic of blind dates. He had found a girl for Lou Celi to meet. He wanted him to settle down so he could enjoy his old age. Lou Celi quickly said he already had someone he liked, but he wanted to make sure before introducing her to his dad. Then, he quickly brought up the topic of moving the company. Jian tried his best to stall and delay the press conference, but he didn't get his father's approval. He sadly went to the park to sit, and Jian followed him to comfort him. He felt that in his father's eyes, he was only second to Lou Celi, and it was still the same now. But Jian said he was just slightly inferior to Lou Celi, while others were inferior to him by an entire galaxy. That was already good enough for someone like Jian to be comforted. He said Jian was handsome, generous, studied abroad at a prestigious university, was good at sports, talented, and good-looking, and was a valuable bachelor among the top 10% of the pyramid. Hearing these words, Jian was somewhat encouraged. Meanwhile, Lou Celi, on his way home, told his assistant that he only wanted to deal with his dad a little bit. But when he mentioned the person he liked, the image of Tian flashed in his mind. The assistant quickly confirmed it for him, saying that it meant he liked her. Hearing these words, Lou Celi recalled their unforgettable moments and concluded, "I think I like Assistant Tian." This statement startled the assistant, who slammed on the brakes and confirmed what Lou Celi had said. After confirming his feelings for Tian, Lou Celi decided to pursue her. Thanks to the advice of his reliable assistant, Lou Celi printed out a picture of himself and placed it in the design room. Chief Lou is about to debut. Tian was confused about what was happening. There was also a picture of Lou Celi on her desk. She thought it was a benefit the director gave to the employees. Our benefits seemed to be different from hers. Tian immediately called Lou Celi. This will cause misunderstandings. Thanks for your good intentions, but I just want to focus on my work right now. Lou Celi was very confident earlier, but these words made his confidence vanish. He wouldn't give up so easily. It was lunchtime, and he asked Tian to have lunch with him. He wanted to use the second tactic his assistant had come up with, creating accidental physical contact between them. When Lou Celi slowly reached out to her, Tian thought he wanted to eat the pork skin, so she brought it to him. To make contact with Tian again, Lou Celi offered to read her palm, but Tian refused. Lou Celi had expressed his feelings so clearly, yet Tian didn't pay any attention to him. Lou Celi's second plan failed. Luckily, his assistant had thought of a third plan. Lou Celi took a gamble one last time. After they went to the bar, Lou Celi sprayed alcohol-scented perfume all over himself, then pretended to be drunk and asked the waiter to call Tian to pick him up. After seeing Tian arrive, Lou Celi immediately pretended to be drunk and tripped Tian, fearing she wouldn't see him. "Chief Liu, why are you so drunk?" Tian had no choice but to take him home. Luckily, she was strong. But she was still a girl, so Lou Celi intentionally pulled her down onto the bed. Tian looked at Lou Celi lying on the bed with his eyes closed, and suddenly found him very handsome. But she immediately woke up. Tian quickly ran away. Lou Celi thought she was gone, and he was very frustrated. Just a little more and the plan would have been successful. After hearing the sound of the door opening, Lou Celi tried to lie down and pretend to be drunk, but he accidentally fell to the ground. He wanted to sit up, but it was too late. Tian returned with the honey water, and she saw his funny posture. "I just made a glass of honey water, and you already dropped it on the floor." She quickly helped Lou Celi sit up and offered him the honey water. Lou Celi seized the opportunity to attract Tian. Do you have something you want to say to me? Go ahead, I'll agree to anything you say. Tian said, You're not afraid of blood anymore, so from now on, I don't have to be your personal assistant, right? Now Lou Celi had messed up his own plan. After returning home, Tian remembered Lou Celi's strange actions, and she started to wonder, could it be that he noticed me? She told her best friend, but she denied it. She said Tian was being delusional. The domineering CEO falls in love with me. That's just a story in a novel. Tian thought maybe she was overthinking. At that moment, Lou Celi called and invited her to do some volunteer work. They met and discussed ideas for the charity event. So when Lou Celi asked her to have dinner, Sorry, I'm busy tomorrow, she refused. Lou Celi thought, It's the weekend, what could she be busy with? He immediately asked his assistant to investigate Tian. It turned out she was doing charity work with senior Lou Celi. So, Lou Celi used the excuse of being a sponsor to help out. While he was sitting on a chair, a kitten ran over, scaring him, and he called for Tian. Tian picked up the cat and asked him, You've never held an animal before, have you? Lou Celi replied, I don't like that soft feeling, it makes me feel weak. But Tian was enthusiastic and wanted him to touch the cat, then handed him the cat. She said the cat was injured and very timid and didn't like to be close to people, but it was surprisingly willing to be held by him. Then she realized it was because of the mint-scented perfume he had sprayed on, which cats liked. Lou Celi felt that Tian always gave him the courage to move forward. When he saw her smile, his heart also felt happy. After the ceremony, Lou Celi met Tian privately and gave her a necklace with a pendant. Actually, Lou Celi had liked Tian for a long time. As he reached out to touch her face, Tian, Lou Celi came to find her and coincidentally saw this scene. He immediately pulled her away, but Tian thought he was being impolite. So, touching her face like Lou Celi is polite? Tian quickly explained, It's not like you think. Lou Celi heard this and became angry. So, is that what it is? When he touched Tian's face, this domineering and narcissistic man made Tian's heart flutter. She was so nervous that she took a wrong turn. When Lou Celi told his assistant about this, through his analysis and conclusion, Tian definitely liked Lou Celi. So, the assistant sent 2 movie tickets to Tian and told Lou Celi that if everything went according to plan, Assistant Tian would invite him to watch a movie tomorrow. That night, Lou Celi and Dr. Lee were confident as they waited for Tian. Dr. Lee was there because Lou Celi thought there was a chance Tian would invite her best friend along, giving him and Dr. Lee a chance to meet and go to the movies together. But in reality, Tian had invited his rival, Lou Celi. As soon as Lou Celi saw them, he was furious. He couldn't let them openly date like this. So they secretly followed them, pretending to bump into them accidentally. Just as Tian and Lou Celi sat down, Lou Celi appeared. He purposely sat next to her, preventing them from having any private time together. Then, something unbelievable happened. After watching the movie, Lou Celi wanted to invite Tian to dinner to thank her for inviting him. How could Lou Celi allow them to have dinner alone together? A second later, the 3 of them were all sitting at a dinner table, the 2 men sitting opposite each other. They were trying to show off their strengths to Tian, determined to see who was better. However, they both had a low tolerance for alcohol. So after a few drinks, they collapsed on the table. Tian had no choice but to call her best friend for help. Then, the 4 of them dragged themselves to a hotel. Hello? Give me 2 rooms. It's not safe for men to be on the streets alone. After returning home, Tian remembered how Lou Celi, while drunk, had pulled her close and said, You can't look at others, you can only look at me. She was even more convinced that Chief Lou had feelings for her. Returning from the hotel after challenging his rival Lou Celi, the assistant handed Lou Celi a bunch of books about love to study. The assistant believed that they needed a rival to push the progress of their relationship. Just then, his father called to inform him that the blind date he had arranged for the next afternoon was set. When he was waiting for the blind date his father arranged, he had no idea that Tian was also there. Lou Celi thought Tian came to find him and was very excited. But Tian acted as if she didn't know him, walking directly past him to Lou Celi's place. Lou Celi's blind date mood immediately disappeared. His gaze stayed glued to Tian. Seeing Tian and Lou Celi about to leave, Lou Celi didn't even care about the blind date anymore. He quickly ran after them. "Tian, I need to talk to you." "She's not free." The war between the two men began again. Tian was afraid they would end up like yesterday, so she quickly left. Lou Celi immediately chased after her. Seeing her and Lou Celi together, he couldn't control his emotions anymore. "I like you, you like me. Yet you're still going on blind dates with someone else? Your taste is too broad. You only need a single scoop from my 3,000 gallons." But Tian didn't respond to his confession. She wanted to calm down for a bit. Lou Celi's first confession had failed, and he blamed his assistant. He was so angry that he sent his assistant to work in Africa, making him incredibly panicked. The assistant quickly thought of another way to save this love affair. Knowing that Tian was going out to take pictures, Lou Celi purposely bought a stuffed bunny to apologize. Actually, Tian had liked him for a long time, so she accepted his apology. Afterwards, they took pictures together, and he personally drove her home. After a day together, Tian decided to try it out. She allowed Lou Celi to be her trial boyfriend for a while before defining their relationship. The next day, Lou Celi came to pick up Tian to buy a birthday gift for Wen Xian. They looked around, but they couldn't seem to agree on anything. Suddenly, they saw Jian coming to buy a necklace for Wen Xian. Tian wanted to go up and greet them, but Lou Celi covered her mouth and pulled her back. Lou Celi had an idea. At Wen Xian's birthday party, Jian took out a unique self-designed necklace to give her. Unexpectedly, Lou Celi also took out a similar one and gave it to Wen Xian. This made Jian feel unhappy. When Wen Xian made a wish, Lou Celi said, "If there is any wish you have, I will fulfill it for you." Wen Xian said she wanted to be his girlfriend. Lou Celi was very surprised. He knew Jian had feelings for Wen Xian, so he frankly said, "I've always considered Wen Xian my sister." Wen Xian quickly said, "I was just joking." Then, she drank alcohol to hide her sadness. Lou Celi used the excuse of leaving early for work to leave Wen Xian with Jian. Wen Xian was drunk, so Jian had to carry her home. Along the way, he saw that she was asleep, and he confessed his feelings. "It's always been me who's been by your side, taking care of you. To make you happy, I always pretended not to care, but I'm the one who secretly likes you." Actually, Wen Xian was awake and heard Jian's words. When they got back to the company, Lou Celi saw that the design room was lit up. When he passed by, he saw that Tian was still designing, so he went out to buy her late-night snacks. Tian enjoyed this privilege and was delighted. Soon, the results of the Outstanding Designer competition came out, and Tian's entry won first place. Lou Celi invited her to dinner to celebrate. Tian saw the waiter bringing a bouquet of roses and was excited. She thought Lou Celi was giving them to her. However, she was overthinking. The roses were for the table next to them. "You like roses? What girl doesn't like roses?" Then, Lou Celi snapped his fingers, and the waiter brought a bouquet of flowers. Tian was surprised. Lou Celi's taste is unique. On their first date, he didn't give her roses. He gave her baby's breath. But his following words touched her. "Do you know the meaning of baby's breath? Because of you, I'm willing to be the supporting role. Do you know the meaning of blue baby's breath? I give you a whole sky full of stars, but I still feel that the whole sky is not as good as you." It turned out that this arrogant man still had a romantic soul. Tian finally accepted his feelings, but happy times are often short. Because of Tian's outstanding performance at the company, she was sent abroad for training for 3 months. It just so happened that Lou Celi was the invited lecturer for this art toy training course. After learning this news, Lou Celi thought about Tian being around Lou Celi for 3 months. Who could guarantee that nothing would happen? Lou Celi would absolutely not allow this. To keep Tian, Lou Celi pretended to have chest pains, dizziness, and lightheadedness. These symptoms made Tian suspect that his old illness had recurred. Lou Celi had no choice but to play along, which made Tian very worried. She rushed to take him to see Dr. Li. Now, everything Lou Celi saw was red. Was his condition getting worse? Dr. Li was stunned. He quickly looked at Lou Celi, then immediately understood. So, Dr. Li used the excuse of giving him a checkup to let Tian go out for a while. Then Lou Celi begged Dr. Li. As a daughter, he had to cooperate with Lou Celi, but he couldn't say anything too outrageous. You can find things that make him afraid, then let him face them to open his heart. Tian immediately understood. This time, Lou Celi is in trouble. She brought out various fruit juices of different colors. From now on, We have to listen to the doctor and face your fear." As a result, Lou Celi couldn't take it anymore after just 2 glasses, to the point that he wanted to kill someone, but couldn't stand it anymore. When he drank the 3rd glass, he spat it all out. Lou Celi wanted to take off his wet shirt. Tian felt very embarrassed. "Today's treatment is over. We'll continue tomorrow." Lou Celi finally escaped. But unexpectedly, Tian didn't let him off at the company. She still wanted to continue the treatment. Tian brought a large glass of watermelon and forced him to finish it. Lou Celi didn't want to drink a drop. "This glass is too big." Just like Liu Zizhao shooting his own foot, Lou Celi took a sip and wanted to vomit. He had to bear all the consequences of what Liu Zizhao had done today. Under Tian's supervision, Lou Celi finally finished the whole glass of watermelon. Wen Xian, feeling shy because of Jian's confession, avoided him continuously, making Jian think she was still upset about his failed confession. So, he took her swimming to help her relax. Wen Xian felt awkward about Jian's concern, so she said, "In my eyes, you're just my brother. Don't have any other thoughts." Jian understood that he knew she had heard everything he said that day, and that's why she was avoiding him. He left sadly, but didn't forget to put her scarf on to keep her warm. To relieve Lou Celi's stress, Tian took him to ride the Ferris wheel and pray at the highest point. She hoped Lou Celi could recover soon and do whatever he wanted to do. Lou Celi felt he was being a little too mean. He shouldn't have lied to her like that. On the way back home, Tian suddenly asked him, "How did your fear of blood suddenly disappear last time? Maybe we can try that way." But after knowing the real reason, Tian started to feel regret. To quickly cure him, Tian shyly kissed Lou Celi on the forehead again. "Are you still dizzy?" Lou Celi lied to her again, saying that this time the illness was more serious than last time. "So we need more contact. Maybe that's how we can see the effect." Before Tian could say anything, Lou Celi gently kissed her on the lips. After receiving Tian's response, they both realized how important they were to each other. Lou Celi was very happy at that moment, and Tian also decided to give up her trip abroad. On the weekend, Lou Celi invited Tian to his house. Tian wanted to give him some red dragon fruit, but she accidentally cut her hand. Lou Celi hurried over to check on her, and then he quickly cleaned her wound. Tian suddenly remembered something. She looked at the red dragon fruit and then at Lou Celi. Suddenly there was a phone call. Why didn't he faint when he saw the red color? Did he recover? Tian was very happy. She thought all her efforts had paid off. Tian ran over to confirm. She accidentally heard. "I also want to tell her the truth, but I haven't found a chance to let her know that I'm not fainting anymore." Lou Celi turned around and saw her. He rushed over and holded Tian's hand, explaining everything to her. But because she had been fooled, Tian didn't want to listen. "You made me give up my dream of going abroad to take care of you, but you lied to me," she said. In fact, Lou Celi did this because Liu Zizhao was going abroad to study with Tian. Lou Celi was afraid that Liu Zizhao would steal Tian away from him. But no matter how Lou Celi explained it, Tian didn't care. She blamed Lou Celi for not trusting her. Their relationship hadn't even reached the stage of intense love before it ended like this. While Tian was heartbroken and sad, Liu Zizhao came to confess his feelings to her. "I like you." Tian immediately rejected his confession. While she complained about Liu Celi on the surface, she had actually fallen in love with him a long time ago. As they walked out of the coffee shop, Liu Celi came with a bouquet of flowers to apologize to Tian. "If you still want to go abroad for training, I will help you. You don't need my compensation." Liu Celi didn't know what to do to get Tian's forgiveness. He had no choice but to go and talk to Dr. Li. Dr. Li thought he deserved it. "This is karma. I tried to advise you, but you wouldn't listen." But seeing Lou Celi's gloomy and sad look, Dr. Li thought of a way. Lou Celi could use his position as director to organize a team-building event, and then take this opportunity to apologize to Tian and make up with her. A single sentence awakened the narcissism in Lou Celi. After returning to the company, he immediately instructed his assistant to organize a team-building event for the entire company. This was a small matter for the assistant, and he immediately arranged. With the help of his assistant and Dr. Li, Lou Celi finally found a chance to be alone with Tian. He couldn't miss this opportunity. Before, he pretended to be sick to stop her from going abroad, purely because he loved her too much. Because he loved her, he was afraid of losing her. He was afraid that after 3 months of being close to Liu Zizhao, she would forget about him. Hearing Lou Celi's sincere confession, she was no longer angry. but she still said, "I won't forgive you." After that outing, Jian didn't appear in front of Yuan anymore, which made her feel very strange, always thinking about him. Yuan realized that Jian had always been by her side, whether she was happy or sad, so she decided to go find him. But Jian ignored her. She twisted her ankle chasing after him, forcing Jian to care for her. But Yuan discovered Jian was having a fever, so she pulled him back to the room, gave him medicine, and took good care of him. When she wanted to use his phone to play games, Jian refused because she was terrible at it. Yuan stubbornly refused to give her the phone, so Jian pulled her closer and asked, "Do you still consider me your little brother?" The intimacy made Yuan feel embarrassed, and she quickly left. That night, the assistant arranged for everyone to play Truth or Dare. Tian was unfortunately punished to drink a lot of alcohol. After carrying her back to her room, Lou Celi was about to leave, but Tian stopped him. Her intoxication made her blurt out what was on her mind. "Why are you everywhere? You're even in my dreams. It's too much of a coincidence. You're the same way." Lou Celi then suggested playing a game. If Tian won, she would kiss him, and if he won, he would kiss her. This man was truly scheming, because no matter who won, he would be the one to benefit. In the end, Lou Celi took advantage of Tian's drunk state and made her kiss him. He couldn't miss such a good opportunity. Lou Celi immediately switched from being passive to active. Even though it was morning, Tian was still thinking about what happened the previous night. She thought she was dreaming. When she saw the note Lou Celi left saying he wanted to give her a surprise, she was blushing furiously. It was then she realized this wasn't a dream. In the final game, the 4 girls were given 4 clues by the assistant to find a treasure. Yuan quickly found Jian, who was about to leave. Yuan stopped him, asking, "Isn't the person you like is me? If you like me, why doesn't the person I like me back? Why don't you see that I'm pursuing you?" In fact, after hearing what Jian said to her on her birthday, Yuan was very confused. She had no idea Jian liked her. The days of avoiding him made her think back about everything and realize that Jian was always by her side. She knew she couldn't leave his side. Hearing this, Jian was overjoyed. He had never let go of her. He was just waiting for her to take his hand. The two of them happily hugged each other and made out, making the viewers visibly happy and satisfied. Tian followed the instructions given by the assistant and went to the beach. First, she saw a picture of their first encounter and a letter expressing Lou Celi's feelings. Tian was very happy and excited. She had actually forgiven him a long time ago. At that moment, Lou Celi suddenly appeared behind her. "Do you want to go on a date with me up high?" They both got on a hot air balloon. Lou Celi confessed to her again. "I like you. Thank you for spoiling me." This time they were truly together, and there probably wouldn't be any unforeseen events anymore. But someone didn't want to see them happy together. As they were walking on the beach, a man wearing a mask suddenly appeared behind them. Before he could attack, Lou Celi spotted him and quickly pushed Tian away. To protect her, Lou Celi was hit in the head. The moment Lou Celi fainted, he remembered the accident from his childhood. In the moment of greatest danger for Lou Celi, a little girl appeared and kissed his forehead. Back then, when he was scared, he only needed to be kissed on the forehead to stop being afraid. "Are you awake?" This familiar voice made Lou Celi realize that the little girl back then was Tian. He then recounted the accident from that year. "It was truly you. No wonder you can cure my fear of blood." It turned out that fate had already made its arrangements. After this attack, the doctor said that Lou Celi's fear of blood had completely disappeared. "That's great, thank you, doctor." Lou Celi ordered his assistant to investigate the matter. His fear of blood had disappeared, but Lou Celi was extremely unstable. He gave up his position as director of the company and allowed Jian to temporarily take over. Lou Celi now only wanted to live a peaceful and leisurely life. His decision surprised the 3 of them. Even Dr. Li, who understood him best, was at a loss. He felt that Lou Celi had become more ill. Finally, the doctor suggested changing his living environment. Perhaps that would allow Lou Celi to slowly recover. So Tian decided to bring Lou Celi back to her hometown to relax. Before leaving, Dr. Li warned her, "This man is not mentally stable at all. You must stay by his side." They quickly arrived at Tian's tea house. Lou Celi could finally have a good rest. Tian couldn't believe that the director who once said, "As long as I have money, I will be charming to everyone," now wanted to seek inner peace and cultivate himself. At 5 a.m., Lou Celi was meditating in the garden, and at noon he was chatting with customers. He talked so annoyingly that all the customers walked away. Tian saw that Lou Celi was becoming increasingly unusual, so she had no choice but to call Dr. Li for help. Dr. Li told Tian that Lou Celi needed more physical activity. Tian quickly came up with an idea. "I want to play some exciting, active games with you." Hearing this, Lou Celi instantly became alert. A second later, he finally realized that the exciting activity Tian was talking about was exercising with the older women in the square. Lou Celi naturally refused, but Tian pushed him into the middle of the group and made him dance with the ladies. When Tian finished her work and came back, she saw the arrogant director doing yoga with the mothers, something she couldn't have imagined. She was truly impressed by him. In the evening, this genius director was meditating in the garden again. Tian was afraid he would be depressed, so she invited him to watch TV and go for a walk, but he refused both. Finally, Tian could only invite Lou Celi to play his favorite game, 3 cards, where whoever lost would get a flick on the forehead. Playing 3 cards with him, I'm sure I'll lose. Lou Celi had never lost in this game, but this time he lost miserably. He was flicked so hard by Tian that his forehead was swollen, and his head was dizzy and spinning. "Please, have mercy, can you flick somewhere else?" Finally, seeing his pitiful look, she couldn't bear to flick him anymore. Tian couldn't help but kiss Lou Celi on the forehead. This time, it was her turn to give Lou Celi a chance to get back at her. "It was you who teased me first, so you have to take responsibility." Lou Celi didn't say anything, but directly kissed Tian. But these things weren't enough to satisfy him. Lou Celi wanted to do even more exciting things with Tian. Before she could react to what was happening, Lou Celi picked her up and went inside the house. And so, they were together. Their love deepened further that night. Early in the morning, Tian went outside to air the bed sheets. The two of them didn't forget to be affectionate with each other. He kissed her, and she kissed him back. My goodness. Their intimate gestures were witnessed by Tian's best friend and Dr. Li. Dr. Li specifically came here to treat Lou Celi, but when he saw the two of them living so happily, he suddenly felt that he was simply making a fuss over nothing. Lou Celi took the opportunity to tease him. "How long have you known Rose? How come you can travel together and be so intimate?" This story is quite entertaining. It seems like Lou Celi is finally letting go of his anxieties and enjoying life, even if it means doing things he never thought he would. It's great to see him happy and finding his way back to normalcy. Lou Celi's words made Rose extremely embarrassed. That day, Lou Celi suddenly received a call from his assistant. It turned out that there was going to be a problem with the company's new product. Lou Celi had to confess to Tian that he pretended to resign as CEO to test Wenxian's father. Lou Celi knew that the man who injured him on the beach was Kevin, and he frequently contacted Wenxian's father. He wanted to resign to make them let their guard down. Now it was time for him to go back and handle the situation. Finally, with his intelligence and talent, the company passed this hurdle and defeated Wenxian's father. This made Tian admire him even more. She liked this arrogant and narcissistic man more and more. Lou Celi also decided to propose to Tian, finally with the help of Dr. Li and Rose. Lou Celi organized a romantic proposal for Tian in the suburbs. His 3 close friends would start with a dance, and this dance was truly captivating. Tian couldn't help but laugh after watching it. After the dance, Lou Celi appeared wearing a white suit. The moment that made everyone's hearts flutter arrived. Lou Celi got down on one knee and took out a diamond ring. "Will you marry this strange boyfriend so that he can become a miracle in your life? Will you agree to enter my strange world, and together we'll flow in the current of love?" Lou Celi put the ring on Tian's finger. After so many difficulties and hardships, they were finally together. This film ends here. See you in the next video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye and see you again.